All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Transfer Portal CFB Gambling Contest presented by No Context CFB. I'm here. I'm George. I'm your host here with my two guest hosts, Matt and Mike. Every week, say hi, guys.
Howdy.
How we doing, everybody?
So we're coming back, another edition. This is week 7 of the Gambling Podcast. We're going to go through all of our picks, cover all the games, and give you our 5 picks that we're going to be tracking every single week: our over, our under, our favorite, our underdog, and of course our upset or our lock of the week. And then we're going to give you our upset and our parlay or teaser of the week. And before we get to that, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel. Homefield is a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis, and they're committed to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. Now, they've got a growing collection of over 150 colleges to choose from, including all of your favorite teams. And if you're new to the Homefield Apparel brand, if you're a first-time customer, first-time shopping over there with them, you can use our promo code PORTAL, PORTAL, for 15% off your first order. That's promo code PORTAL, PORTAL, for 15% off your first order. So that link is in the bio of this video, along with all of our socials. You can follow us, like and subscribe to this video, and follow us on our website, thetransferportalcfb.com, on Twitter or X, tportalcfb, and engage with us and follow some of our picks and let us know what you think. So in honor of letting us know what you think, let's dive into last week, week 6, before we get started. So we got to come clean a little bit. So Mike had a good bounce back week. Matt, a little bit in the middle of the road, but you still got your lock. I was just ice cold. 0 for 5 with my picks. Not even close on my upset. And I think my parlay out of 4 or out of 5 picks, I missed 4 of them. So a little bit rough. But how'd you guys do last week? I'll start with you, Matt.
Mine were, it was like everything was close up until like the third or fourth quarter, and then it all fell apart at the end, and most of mine. So that was kind of the story of my week, is just being right there and then missing it.
What about you, Mike? Mike, you had a good bounce back week. You were 4-1 in your picks.
3-2, but I won both of my
3-2.
I won my upset and I won my parlay too. So I would have made someone a lot of money last week.
That's true. Yeah, you got some money making picks in there, but yeah, to cover some last week, I have to lay in the bed that I made last week, and that was putting all my chips on the table, saying that Texas is back, betting Texas as my lock of the week. I should have known better, not jinxing my team when I was 0-5 currently on locks, but 0-6 now. Texas loses the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. Brutal loss. Dylan Gabriel driving down the field at the very end. So my takeaway for the week is Texas is just not back. But no, it's been a pretty tough college football season to gamble on, especially because, like we said last week, there's a lot of really good teams. There's not any incredible teams. There's going to be a lot of movement in the top 10 and around the rankings. But yeah, any bad beats of the week? I'll start with you, Mike. How'd your week go in terms of bad beats?
Just one, and I'm the jury's not out yet on if Texas is back or is not back or not. They're still
Oklahoma's good, man. Oklahoma's good.
I think I said last week on the podcast though that I don't think Oklahoma can beat Texas. Texas can lose though, and I think Texas lost. With the turnovers and trying to play a different game. So I'm not ready to say that they're not back. I think that everything is still in front of them. But bad beat. You were at this game, and I know it's a bad beat for you in a different way, but Ohio State and Maryland. So Maryland played a fantastic game outside of a couple turnovers. I was a little frustrated. 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Ohio State was up 3 scores, still had their starters in after Maryland punted. They got into field goal range and kicked a field goal to bury my plus 19.5 to go up 20.
Yeah, exactly. 20. And I was at this game. It was a great game because obviously I was for Ohio State. But when I saw the starters in the fourth quarter and Ohio State gets the ball back, I'm thinking, all right, come back down, run some your plays. You kind of split it out wide to Cade Stover last time. You had a couple of big Marvin Harrison Jr. touchdowns. You had one that got called back, and you did the same thing again. But I thought they were going for the end zone, and I was at the game, so I bet the over. And if they would have gotten a touchdown, they would have hit the over of 56.5. But end up kicking the field goal. The game ends at 54, and so both of us lose. and they win by exactly 20, so 37 to 17. But the first half, Ohio State was sleepy, and I don't know if I think I texted you in the first half when I was watching it because it was 10-10 at half. And I literally said, I was like, if Maryland scores first, then this game is, I think 19.5 is a lock. Maryland scored almost immediately. And I thought you had it in the bag at halftime, but no, definitely a bad beat there for you. And me, not so much a bad beat, but more just, wishful thinking that their offense was in, they were going to get a touchdown, not just be conservative and kick a field goal with 2 minutes left to go with 20. But I don't know. Ryan Day knows what pays his bills, but what about you, Matt? You got any bad beats this past week?
Mine was Missouri plus 5.5, and I thought this was good because they scored a touchdown with like 5 minutes left to go up 4. So I'm like, at worst, LSU drives down, scores a touchdown. They win by 3. I'm good. They drive down, score touchdown. There's 2 more possessions in between LSU's touchdowns where they punted the ball back and forth a couple of times where I'm like, okay, 30 seconds left. This is done. We're good. Missouri gets a deflected pick. The kid runs it back. It looked like he was going to go down when he caught it, but then decided not to and just started running and gets it all the way back. Scores, they go up 10. I lose plus 5.5.
Yeah, you can't blame the college kid for running that all the way back. But
he's got draft picks to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's got to work on his own draft stock. But also, I mean, it's kind of nuts because on paper that game did not look super close if you just looked at the box score. But yeah, no, that game was incredibly close, and Missouri played fairly well until that. But yeah, that's a brutal, the pick six to kind of throw it out of whack when you're already losing by a couple points is insane. But moving on to week 7, a couple of the games that we got this week. We have a couple of ranked games, so pretty big games that we have going on this week. We'll cover all of them, get our feel, but a couple of them are going to be in our picks, so we won't go too into detail until we get to our picks there. But first ranked game of the week, or this isn't necessarily in order, but one of the first ranked games is USC Notre Dame. So USC visiting Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a favorite by 3 points.
Oh, he froze up.
Yep.
And it's not a good looking face.
That is not the screen you want to be stuck on.
Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, you guys both froze. I wasn't even sure. But did you get my question? I was passing over USC Notre Dame to you about how you feel about that game.
I'd start over on USC, and they can just Adam can clip it. I'll tell him where to clip it.
Okay. All right. First ranked game of the week: USC at Notre Dame. So USC number 10 visiting number 21 Notre Dame. Notre Dame's favored by 3 points, and over under 59.5. So Matt, what do you think about that game?
I thought all of the ranked games I thought could have been pick'ems. This is another one. There's a very real shot, especially with how Notre Dame has looked recently, that USC wins this game, and I think USC should win this game, especially with Notre Dame's the offense. Sam Hartman's good, but the offense has struggled to score outside of him making good plays. The run game hasn't been great as it should be with the O-line they have. So I think this is going to be a really close game. It should be a shootout because every USC game is nowadays, but this should be a really close game.
I was gonna say, if there's a bounce back game for Notre Dame's offense, it's definitely going to be against USC. They can't stop anything. But yeah, this I don't know. It was a little bit odd to me because USC, I feel like every single one of the games is close, and them being a 3-point underdog to Notre Dame, who's, Notre Dame just lost last week to Louisville, so it's a little bit odd to see. But I do actually like Notre Dame in that game. But Mike, the next game we got Miami. So number 25, Miami, Florida visiting North Carolina, number 12. What do you got for UNC? They're favored 3.5, and the over-under is 57.5.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. So the way Miami lost last week is embarrassing and inexcusable. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that. Now, Drake May is playing very, very well. They're getting that wide receiver. His name's escaping me. The one that's got an eligibility.
Devontae.
Yeah. getting him his feet wet. But they had 200-yard receivers outside of him last week. So I think this is going to be another high-scoring game. Even though Miami's defense is nothing to sneeze at. All of these look fun.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks fun. And to be honest, I kind of wrote North Carolina off a little bit in the beginning because I thought their offense would be way, way better. But yeah, Drake May's kind of turned the corner a lot, get back to his old form the past couple of weeks. I forget how much they put up the past 2 weeks. I think they put up 40 something each time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, great. I think that's going to be a good game. UNC 3.5 is a pretty good line because I do think they win. I don't know how much they win by, but no, Miami's definitely at least a better opponent for them. But next game, UCLA. So number 18, UCLA going to Oregon State, number 15. Oregon State is a 4-point favorite. So Oregon State -4. Over under is 54.5. So Matt, what do you think about this game? Oregon State Beavers hosting UCLA.
I think if we look at the two teams' ceilings, the ceiling UCLA showed last week against Washington State is better than anything Oregon State has shown, in my opinion. But Oregon State has had a much more consistent standard of play. They've been pretty good in pretty much every game, where UCLA's had some like real stinkers. I think the battle on the most important side is UCLA's defense versus Oregon State's offense, because UCLA's defense has been really good. They balled out against Washington State. And I think if they can just force DJ to make throws, because Oregon State obviously just wants to run it down your throat. They don't want DJ to have to make throws. If UCLA can force DJ to make throws, they win this game.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think, they looked good against Washington State. I think Dante Moore is coming to his own. He's everyone knew he was going to be a good prospect, but I think they struggled a lot against Utah when they played Utah. Utah's a very physical football team. Oregon State, I know they lost to Washington State, so we're doing common opponents, but they put up a lot of points on Washington State, and they actually kind of moved the ball pretty well against Utah, and they're a pretty physical front and a pretty physical football team. So I think UCLA has a tough matchup because they're not as physical as as Oregon State is, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns up. And the last game, another Pac-12 game, but this is the highlight of the entire weekend. Oregon number 8 visiting Washington number 7. So this is kind of a preview of potentially who's going to be representing the Pac-12 in the playoff. I know preseason everyone wasn't positive about how these teams would be rounding out, and last year it was a little bit different with Utah and with USC kind of duking it out, and USC losing again to Utah in the Pac-12 championship. But both of these teams look like complete juggernauts. Oregon looks incredible. They've been blowing every single team out. Washington's offense looks amazing. They've been doing super well. The only time they didn't cover spread was when I bet them as my lock. So obviously, I won't do that this week. But what do you guys think of this game? I'll start with you, Mike, but this is kind of the highlight of the entire week. Washington's -3, by the way, and the over-under is 67.5. So huge points being put up this weekend.
Huge points, and I wouldn't touch it, to be honest with you. I could see it being way over that. But I could also see it not making there. I think you're going to go from the UCLA-Oregon State matchup, where the defenses are both pretty darn good, to this Oregon-Washington game where the defenses are good. It's just the offenses, I think, are really good. So they each only had one close game. Oregon was Texas Tech. Washington was Arizona. Otherwise, they've been blowing everybody out the water. So I think it's going to be fun, and they should treat it like a playoff matchup, because this is going to be, who's representing the North.
Yeah,
exactly. Matt, what do you think about our matchup here?
This is like probably the best game on the schedule all year. Like it's outside of Ohio State, Michigan. Like this is going to be the best matchup of like a 7 versus 8 in terms of that, because like even the first week we had 5-10 LSU, Florida State. Everyone thought LSU was a little overrated at 5 there, so it didn't kind of feel like this kind of juggernaut matchup that we're getting here. I think Oregon. I lean Oregon here, but like I can 100% see a world where Michael Penix puts up 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and just dominates. So it should be a really fun game.
Yeah, that's the scary part. Is I can see Bo Nix doing that. I can also see Michael Penix Jr. doing that. So, but no, I think this is going to be a super fun game. I can honestly see this going way over or way under with a total of 67.5 too. So We'll see. Definitely, I have a pick on this later, so I'll save that for later. But this is going to be a super fun game, and I'm really glad that we're getting this far into the season where both teams are 5-0, both teams look awesome, and it's kind of been hyped up. But somehow, I don't think this game is even being hyped up as much as it should be, which is a little bit of a crime. But it's a 3:30 Eastern game, so it's a good time slot. It's not a super late night Pac-12 game. But before we get into our picks, let's go review last week. I already kind of hinted at it. I was 0-5, but 0-5, lost my lock, lost the upset, and lost my parlay. So red all the way across the board. But Matt 2-3 last week, but won your lock, and Mike 3-2 last week, also won your lock. So our standings as we sit now, all of us boys were all under 500. So a little bit ugly. We got to clean this up. But Mike's in first place, 14-16. 5-1 on his locks. Second place, Matt 13-17, 5-1 in your locks. And I'm sitting in third place, 12-18, 0-6 on my locks. So a little bit ugly, but we got to turn the corner a little bit, and hopefully this is the week to do it. So I'm not going to guarantee winners this week because I was super pumped to, thought I had it in the bag last week, and just everything went off the rails. So we'll see how we do. But let's move on to our official picks. Again, we're going to do 5 over, under, favorite, underdog, and our lock of the week. Then we're going to send you on your way with some money-making picks, our true upsets. So that's anything, plus 130 and up. And then our parlay or teaser of the week, it's got to be at least 3 legs. And then we'll talk about a couple other random picks that we like. But let's start with our over. Matt, I'll start with you. What's your favorite over for this week?
I went with Buffalo and Bowling Green, which at 44.5, I feel is a really easy number to get to, because Buffalo's offense has been, outside of one game against Akron where they only put up 13, they put up 30, at least 30 in every single game. And then their defense has been abysmal. It's part of the reason they're 2-4. They won both of their MAC games. They're first in the MAC technically, but they allowed 45 to UL Monroe, 55 to Liberty, 40 to Fordham. So it's a defense that's allowed a lot of points. So I think they're leaky enough that they should let Bowling Green score a couple of times. Where Bowling Green has also had a similarly bad defense. They allowed 38 to Miami, Ohio, 31 to Michigan, which is obviously not that bad. Then 27 to Miami, Ohio last week. So I don't think this is going to be a shootout by any means, but I think this is like very easily like a 28-21 game where both teams just kind of score 3 or 4 touchdowns.
It doesn't have to be a shootout to hit 44.
Yeah, I do think Buffalo wins because I just think they're a better team in general. They were my pick to win the MAC this year. So I think they're a better team, but I think they should go over this 44.5 number pretty easily.
What's the spread on this game? I don't even.
4.5 for Buffalo.
Okay.
I like that too. If anyone's interested, it's not my favorite pick, but that is my spread I like.
No, I like that. I like that. 44 is not that crazy of a number to hit. I think there just might be a little bit of chaos in here, but chaos a lot of times breeds touchdowns. So I imagine that might be a pretty good pick to bet on. But I'm going to give mine. I have Kansas State and Texas Tech over 56.5. I think a lot of people get a little bit scared of this, mostly because Tyler Show got injured 2 weeks ago, and he's been out a little bit. But Texas Tech's offense has kind of found its way again. They struggled a little bit right when he went out, but last week they put up 39 on Baylor, so they've kind of rounded back into form. And Kansas State is not really who we thought Kansas State was. Kansas State I thought was going to be a little bit better on defense and be able to run the ball more effectively. They lost last week to Oklahoma State, so kind of an ugly loss, but they're definitely able to put up points. So, I mean, they're averaging around, 35 points a game. And, Texas Tech is still, even with Tyler Show out, they're averaging about 45 points a game the last 2 and, around 35 also going back to the beginning of the season. So we know they can both put up points. I think this is going to be a classic Big 12 matchup, but I have this game going over Kansas State and Texas Tech going over I lost my sheet, but I think it's 56.5, right?
Yeah, 56.5.
Yeah, but what about you, Mike? What's your favorite over for the week?
For your guys' picks, I love them both. Buffalo saved me last week for the upset. I think they scored 38 points or 37 points, something like that. So that's almost all the way to 44. And then Texas Tech, if they get ahead, This could go way. This could go way over 56.5. If Kansas State gets ahead, though, they're going to try to sit on the ball as best they could. That'd be my only concern there. But I don't think that's going to happen. Mine, Louisville at Pitt over 44.5. So Pitt's defense is not good. They gave up 41 to UNC, 38 to Virginia Tech, and one of my losses 2 weeks ago. But Louisville's coming off a good win. Pitt is starting their dual threat running back. I mean, not running back, quarterback. It's a transfer actually from Penn State, Christian Bayer. So I'm quite familiar with him. He's a darn good quarterback. So I think they're going to put up some points themselves. But Louisville, I think, is going to put up at least 30 in this one. So I don't need too much from Pitt to be able to cover that spread.
Yeah, and Louisville's coming off a hot game, obviously, against Notre Dame, but Pitt's coming off a bye week, too. So I do like Pitt to put up some points. They're starting the new quarterback. I think they were talking about, like, they called it, like, the new offense. I don't know if that's just the new look offense, just with him starting, or if they're going to actually try and do, more RPO type stuff with him. But we'll see. But I think they're going to be able to, have a couple sneaky plays and move the ball a little bit more. And I could see Pitt doing pretty well in this game. Might be a letdown game for Louisville, but we'll see. But next game, our next picks, the under. I'll start with mine. I have a little bit of an unusual under. I have Indiana, Michigan under 45.5. The spread on this game is, I think it's 33.5 for Michigan minus 33.5. So it's a little bit risky having a 33.5 point spread with a 45.5 point total, but I just think Michigan is going to completely blow them out of the water. I mean, Michigan's defense has looked absolutely incredible recently. I mean, they've literally only given up double digits once, and that was last week to Minnesota, and their defenses look great, and they've just been able to kind of squash teams. They score early, they score pretty fast and efficiently, and then they're just able to run the ball and just control the entire clock. So I can kind of see them holding Indiana to a goose egg and holding them to 0. If they score one touchdown, I still think I would be okay. But I personally think this game is going to be either 42-0 or, maybe it'll be like, 38 to like 7 or something like that, and I could still be okay. But we'll see what Indiana is able to do. But I think Michigan's priding themselves on being able to stop teams and keep every single team in one score. So I think this is going to be under 45.5, Indiana at Michigan.
There's kind of two versions of that game this week because Penn State's the same thing. They're 41.5 point favorites, but the over-under is only like 50, 54, 55. So there's two versions of that game this week.
Yeah. What do you got, Matt, for under of the week?
I went with a game we talked about earlier, one of the ranked games. I went UCLA, Oregon State under 54. I talked about how good UCLA's defense has been. They've gone under this total in every game but one, and that was against North Carolina Central, where they scored 59 by themselves, and even then they only allowed 7. Other than that, their totals have been 42, 21, 45, and 40. So they've had really low-scoring games. They want to run the ball. Dante Moore is a dual threat. He's going to run the ball a little bit. Oregon State, as we know, wants to be physical, wants to run the ball. And I think the defenses are going to control this game a little bit. And with the way UCLA's been able to stop the run, they're only allowing 64 yards on the ground a game. I think UCLA will be able to hold Oregon State down a little bit. I still don't know who comes out on top. It's a really close game, in my opinion, but I don't think there will be a 54 points scored.
Yeah, I actually love this pick. I saw that you had it, and I was like, oh man, I probably should have jumped all over this. But yeah, it's Oregon State -4, but still, I think it's going to be a super close game. And UCLA's got Carson Steele, and he's a monster also on the ground. So, but no, I think it's going to be a huge running game. And I don't know, DJ has looked pretty good early this season. I think he started to come back down to earth because he is, again, the same quarterback that transferred from Clemson. He's primarily a runner first. That's like what he tends to do. But if he gets, an hour behind the line, what he normally does. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that against UCLA. Again, they're, like you mentioned, they're pretty good at stopping the run. So we'll see. But I love this pick under 54.5. But Mike, what about you? How do you feel about our picks, and what do you got for your under?
I like both your picks. So in Indiana at Michigan, 45.5. It's going to be cold and rainy in Ann Arbor this Saturday. It's in the 40s and rainy. Tom Allen as much crap as Indiana gets, he's a defensive coach at heart. I love that under. UCLA too. So UCLA really only allowed Washington State to score 7 or 10 points last week. There was a pick six that added to the total for Washington State. So it's UCLA's defense is very, very good. So I like that pick as well. I have Iowa State at Cincinnati under 45. So Cincinnati is a different football team when they play at home. They held Oklahoma to 20 points, Eastern Kentucky or something like that to 10 points. They're still Cincinnati. They still want the dual threat quarterback. They're not going to toss it all around the yard. And Iowa State, they're not a bad football team, but they're not a good one, I don't think. So I don't see this getting above 45. Specifically, another cold and rainy day in Ohio on Saturday.
I think it's
Another
actually
cold and rainy day in Ohio.
I think it's cold and rainy in Oregon too. I think that game's forecasted for rain too.
That would be even better. Yeah, no, I love both of your guys' picks. I think Iowa State also just can't do anything. So I could see them, putting up single digits as well. But no, I love all three of those. Like both of your guys' picks. And then who we like for our favorite. So Matt, I'm going to go to you first. Who's your favorite of the week giving points?
I went with Fresno State on kind of a bounce back week. They lost their perfect season. They're no longer undefeated. They lost to Wyoming last week, who are the upset specialists this year. They see Wyoming seems to play everyone pretty close. And then they're -4.5 against Utah State, who's I think is an overachieving team this year. Utah State was a really bad team last year. I think they went either 1-11 or 2-10. They've already passed that total this year. They're 3-3, but whenever they've played a good team, they've lost. They lost to Air Force, lost to JMU. They beat Idaho State by 50. Sure, big whoop. They beat UConn by 1, beat Colorado State, which are all three teams that I don't think are very good teams. So I think Fresno State, should be at least a touchdown favorite. I think they're a much better team. Their defense is really good, and Mikey Keem throws the ball around pretty well. So I think Fresno State covers a touchdown pretty easily.
Yeah, I think this is a huge reaction line from last week, having this at 4.5. But I love that pick. I think Fresno State's definitely going to cover by a touchdown. I was flirting with that. I was flirting with a couple for my favorites, but I ended up going. My favorite is Troy -4.5 at Army. So being at Army, I don't completely love that. I'm sure it might be a little bit cold and rainy in upstate New York, but I think Troy has looked like an incredible football team the last couple of weeks, and Army has started to come back down to earth. They looked great. Their offense looked great early this season. They were throwing the ball around, and they've kind of come back to being Army, and they've been rushing for like 200 yards a game. But Troy has been blowing teams out the last 2 weeks, right after they, beat and upset Western Kentucky 3 weeks ago. That was a pretty close game, but they've held the last two teams they played to one score. So they beat Georgia State and Arkansas State, and Army's dropped their last two to Syracuse and BC. But Troy's only allowed like 84 yards a game on the ground throughout the entire season. So I think they're going to stifle Army a little bit, kind of plug them up and stop their run and be able to put up some points. But I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game, but I could see Troy covering by a touchdown. What do you got, Mike?
I got UNC -3 versus Miami. So in North Carolina, like I said, that Miami loss last week was not a normal loss, and you can see the emotion in that locker room, and it didn't look good. It didn't look like there were a bunch of leaders over there saying, "Hey guys, we'll make this happen." And it looked like the exact opposite. And then I didn't watch that full game, just the last play of sequences like a lot of other folks did, and those certainly looked like UNC plays against that secondary of Miami. Drake May avoiding the rush in the pocket, sliding and then throwing downfield. That looked an awful lot like UNC. So I can see this one getting away from Miami in a hurry.
Yeah, I think, and UNC's offense just looked incredible. I think Miami, the wheels are starting to come off, and they're a little demoralized. So I do love this pick. I think 3 is a good line because if it was higher than 3, I'd be a little more skeptical. But 3, I think, is a great line to get UNC at. Let's move over to our underdogs. I'll give mine first. So our favorite team getting points this week. We talked about this game a little bit earlier in terms of Mike's over. So he had Louisville Pitt over 44.5. I have Pitt +8 home against Louisville for my underdog. So Pitt getting over a touchdown. I think they're changing their offense a little bit. New quarterback in. I think this is a little bit of a letdown game for Louisville. Huge win against Notre Dame last week. They kind of balled out and were able to pull a huge upset. I think this is a slight letdown game, and Pitt's going to be able to put up some points. And the fact that it's home, I think they're going to be able to grind it out. I don't necessarily think they're going to win, but I think they're going to keep this close, and they're going to surprise Louisville with being able to put up a couple extra points on them. So I could see this game staying within a touchdown. I could see this game honestly ending in like a field goal win for either team, but Pitt +8 versus Louisville. And what do you got, Matt?
I like that pick. I like that as a sneaky upset pick with the new quarterback back there.
Mm-hmm.
I went with the game of the week. I have Oregon +3 at Washington. I'd love for this to be 3.5, just get that extra half point, but I don't think the line's gonna move anymore. That seems to have been stuck pretty well at 2.5 and 3. This comes down to me. I think Oregon has the better rushing attack. So they have Bucky Irving back there, obviously one of the better running backs in the country. Both passing offenses are really good. Washington's passing offense is slightly better, but if Oregon's able to get a lead, I think they'll have a better chance to sustain the lead with just pounding the rock, being able to move it pretty easily against the Washington defense that is good, not great, but so they should be able to consistently move the chains. So I think Oregon should be able to at least stay within a field goal, but I think Oregon wins this game too.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. But I'll turn over to Mike. How do you feel about the pick? And then who do you got for your underdog? So who you got getting points this week?
I like both of those picks for reasons we have already talked, and you'll see Oregon for me later on. I got Indiana +33.5 at Michigan. So you already talked about this for your under. It's cold and rainy. That's 5 touchdowns against a Power 5 opponent. Indiana lost one game, I know, that in the last 2 years by 33.5, and that was to Ohio State at Ohio State, which was last year against a very, very different Ohio State team. That's just too many points. I could see Michigan covering it, but I don't think they're going to cover it. That's Tom Allen, the defensive-minded coordinator. The 5 touchdowns is a lot.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns is a lot. I think the only thing that I don't like about this pick is that Jim Harbaugh is just greedy and he's going to want to cover 5 touchdowns. But I do love like the theory of this pick. I think this is just a grind game where I could see this in the fourth quarter being 28-0, and then me kind of just celebrating already and you celebrating also. But yeah, I think this is going to be just an ugly game, and ugly not necessarily both teams, but ugly just like. It's just going to be one of those games you like put on and forget about because it's a 3 touchdown game, and then they just kind of keep punting it back and forth. But yeah, so like all those picks, but let's move on to our locks of the week. So I'm going to go first with my lock of the week because, again, I'm 0-6, so I got to change something up a little bit. This time I'm picking the game of the week. We've already talked about it. Matt picked it as his underdog, which maybe not be a good sign because last week we did the same thing with Texas, but I'm going with Oregon +3 at Washington. I think this is Oregon's time to shine. I think Washington's a really good football team. I mean, I have them in my top 5. I have Oregon also in my top 5, but I just think Oregon has, rounded the corner to being like a legitimate juggernaut. They've looked incredible, whereas Washington has just looked very good, but has looked like they've had some kinks in the armor, and that's primarily on defense. Giving up 24 points to Arizona last week doesn't really give me too much confidence. I do think they could score a lot, but like Matt said, if they get ahead, Oregon's going to be able to run the ball a lot, and Oregon's defense is literally giving up 100 yards a game less overall than Washington's defense. So I think Oregon's going to be able to put up a lot of points. I think Washington is too. They're not holding Washington to 200 yards, but I think it's going to be, up in the 60s, but I think Oregon's going to be able to cover by a touchdown. They're going to get up early and it's going to go back and forth, but I think it's going to be a 7-10 point game, and Oregon's just going to lean on them and win this game outright. But I moved this to my underdog because I just love the line getting 3 points in this game. But yeah, I'll move over to you, Matt. You already talked about Oregon, but what do you got for your lock of the week?
I went with JMU, James Madison -6 against Georgia Southern. I wish if we recorded this yesterday, this line was 3.5. This line has moved a bunch already. So I would have loved to have it at 3.5 number, but still being within a touchdown, I think JMU should be able to cover that. JMU is a juggernaut in the Sun Belt. They're like far and away the best team in the conference. It's a crime they yet again won't be able to play in the conference championship game. But I don't. Georgia Southern's 4-1, but they haven't played anybody yet. Like their games have been against Citadel, UAB, Wisconsin, who they got blown out by, Ball State, who's one of the worst teams in the MAC in my opinion, and then Coastal Carolina, which hasn't quite been the team we thought they were going to be. That offense just hasn't found its gears yet, so they were able to beat them. I just think JMU's the far better team here. JMU should be ranked in my opinion. It's kind of surprising to me they're not, but I get it in terms of competition they played. But I do think JMU should be able to cover a touchdown pretty easily.
Yeah, I think JMU covers a touchdown too, and this is Clay Helton at Georgia Southern, right? Yeah. I think a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the Wisconsin game. I thought they were going to keep it way closer, and they ended up. I think I bet on them, and they ended up getting blown out. But so since then, I've been a little bit salty with Clay Helton not being able to cover spreads. But I do think JMU is a much better football team. I'm astonished that this is not a touchdown, so I do love this pick. I think JMU did write to the NCAA trying to appeal. Because this is it's a 2-year bowl, you know.
And last year they were 10-2 and didn't get to play in the conference championship. This year they're already 5-0. So
yeah, they're an exciting team. Like it's a super fun story. But yeah, I hate that they can't. I hope they get to overrule that appeal. Maybe the NCAA would do what they did with the UNC receiver and just be like, oh yeah, it's your guy's fault, but now he can just start playing again. Just like, stop themselves from getting any blame whatsoever for completely botching that situation. But yeah, no, I do love this pick of JMU. But Mike, how do you feel about our picks, and who do you got for your lock of the week?
I like them both. So James Madison's a good football team. Georgia Southern, I don't know a ton about, so I can't speak on what the spread should be for that. But they're a good football team. And I'll bring up why I like your Oregon pick a little bit later. So my lock of the week is Kentucky -2.5 at home versus Mizzou. This means more about I think Kentucky's a better football team than Missouri is. I know that they got boat raced last week against Georgia, but Georgia's defense is not Missouri's defense. Missouri was in a drag race with LSU, which was fun to watch. But Kentucky's a better football team. If you look at Missouri's FBS wins in September, they won by 4, 3, and 7 against the teams they played, and they were not playing Kentucky. They were playing Middle Tennessee State, Kansas State, which we found out are kind of frauds, and Memphis. This game is at Kentucky. I feel really, really good about 2.5.
Yeah, I do like this pick. The only thing that scares me a little bit, I do like Missouri's offense and the fact that last week's game, like they lost by 10 to LSU, but that was not a 10-point loss. Like Matt said, that was kind of a freak, loss that they had. But no, I do like this pick. I think Kentucky's actually a good team, and I think they just had the misfortune of playing Georgia right when Georgia needed to bounce back week, like very, very badly, when everyone was starting to, take them off the number 1 shelf spot. But yeah, no, I like this pick, and I'll trust you guys' locks because I sure as hell can't trust mine. So
yeah, the other reason I like it, so this is only Missouri's second away game this year, and their first one was away at Vanderbilt. So Kentucky is not Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that's true.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they beat Vanderbilt. It was like a 17-point win, but still.
Yeah, 38-21.
That's still, it's still a Vanderbilt team. It's not Kentucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like both of your guys' picks. I feel like I just need to do every single week parlay both of yours and then parlay the opposite of mine, and then I'll that should just be my parlay teaser. I should just hedge it every single week against myself. But
can't lose both of them.
Yeah, I know exactly. But all right, so let's move on to our upset. So we got our 5 picks. We got our over, our under, our favorite, our underdog, and our lock of the week. So we'll put out the graphic. That's what we're tracking, and that's what we're keeping score on. But a couple of the money-making picks where we get some plus money for some upsets and some teasers and parlays. So Matt, I'll start with you. Give us your upset of the week, and this is a game that's plus 130 or more.
So mine's got a little more. I went with BYU's plus 190 at TCU. And I was surprised this wasn't closer to a pick'em, especially with how bad. So TCU's season obviously started off with that close loss to Colorado, but then the last 2 weeks they've lost to West Virginia and Iowa State, which are not good football teams. So maybe the books are thinking, "Hey, well, no way they lose 3 in a row." But I like BYU's like they've been a pretty good team. They kept it pretty close against Kansas. They beat Arkansas. They beat Cincinnati. This is a team that's won games. They know how to win games. And I think they have a good shot of upsetting TCU this week.
Yeah, it's still Keaton Slovis starting at BYU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think BYU is a pretty good football team, and I think TCU. I mean, we already talked about it earlier in the season, but they kind of rode off of last season's hype for way too long. They're not a good football team, and I do feel bad because it does make the Colorado loss look a little bit, or the Colorado win look a little bit less impressive. Watching TCU just completely slide down the Big 12, and losing to West Virginia, who's not a great football team either. I do like this pick of BYU. That's pretty good value, plus 190.
Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State. Like we talked about, never ever bet on Iowa State or Iowa unless you're Matt and you make money on Iowa. But all right. So upset of the week. So true upset. I have Texas A&M plus 145 at Tennessee. So the spread's 3.5, Tennessee minus 3.5. This is kind of a risky pick. It's just kind of throwing one out there of what I think could happen. I think Tennessee is a little bit streaky on offense. They're definitely really good, but I'm not fully confident that they're sustainable the way they are. And I've been extremely impressed with Texas A&M after Connor Wingham went out, and the fact that they've actually been able to, continue their offense under Max Johnson. He's looked really good. He has a lot of experience. I could see them, moving the ball pretty well and actually being able to keep up a little bit with Tennessee. And yeah, I mean, Texas A&M played Alabama super competitive last week. I know it's not the Alabama that everyone, is used to, but Jalen Milrose looked way better than he has in the past, earlier this season. And I think their defense, has played fairly well. So we'll see what Tennessee is going to be able to do. If they don't get off to a super big start and they don't get up by double digits early, I think this is going to be a little bit of a grinded out game for A&M, and they might be able to pull off a victory. So not insanely good value, but plus 145. This is something's probably going to happen in the SEC type bet. But Mike, what do you think, and what do you got for your true upset?
I like the value of both of those, especially the BYU's almost double your money. I went with the Oregon, so I think that should be a pick'em game. If you looked at the slate of all the ranked matchups, it's almost like Vegas just looked at who's home and made them -3. I think Oregon has the most likely chance of being the underdog upset of those 4 games. They're a good football team. I know Washington can very well blow them out if Michael Penix Jr. gets hot. But Oregon's defense is very, very good. But Bo Nix has them rolling right now.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about this ad nauseum, but it's frightening me a little bit that all 3 of us are on the same side of the coin. So we'll see. We're either all going to be stoked next week when we're recording this, or we're going to be beat up a little bit, and I'm going to be 0-7 on my locks. But that can't happen, right?
Surely not. Surely.
Oh man, but all right. So let's get to our other money making section of the week, our parlays or teasers of the week. So this is at least a 3-leg parlay or teaser, and we'll give you the value after we run it, and we'll put the value on the card as well. So I'll just start with mine. I'm calling this my just pick winners parlay. So I'm doing all money line. This is a true parlay, but I got 4 picks here. It's JMU money line. Matt already talked about this game. I love them -6, but money line, I love them even more. Maryland money line against Illinois. I think this is a 14-point spread as it stands. Illinois is not the football team we thought they were, and I think Maryland played well against Ohio State, even though they didn't, cover 19.5. I still think they had a pretty good game. Kansas money line against Oklahoma State. This is the closest one. I think this is a 3-point spread as it stands, but I think Kansas is just a way better football team than Oklahoma State is. And it's just being at Oklahoma State's a little bit sketchy, but I think Kansas is able to pull off just getting out of there with a win. And then the final is LSU money line against Auburn. I think this is a double-digit spread. I think it's 12.5 right now. But LSU, I think, is a better football team, and them being able to put up some points last week against Missouri, I think they've their offense is humming, and I just don't think Auburn can keep up with them. So all four of those money line winners plus 244 if you parlay them together. So pretty good value, 2.5 times your money. And I think most of these are spread to the noon and early afternoon slate. So you'll know how you did before the night games. But Matt, what do you got for your parlay or teaser of the week?
I went with the teaser. This one's mostly later games. Like Ohio State's the earliest game, so 6-point teaser. So Ohio State down to -13 at Purdue. Louisville down to -1.5 at Pitt. Utah -5.5 versus Cal, and Miami, Ohio -3 versus Western Michigan. Miami, Ohio, I think is probably the second or third best team in the MAC. They're a really good team, and Western Michigan just hasn't been able to click anything this year on offense. Utah, I just think they're a better team than Cal. Cal's been kind of struggling since they've had injury issues at quarterback the last few weeks, and their offense has struggled a bit. Louisville -1.5. We kind of got to thread the needle there between +8 and -1.5. We're doing a lot of these thread the needle picks, but let's shoot for a Louisville 3-point win there.
That's a good runway, though. You could even have 7. I'll give you 7.
And then Ohio State at Purdue. We talked about Purdue last week with my Iowa lock. Not a good football team. Ohio State should be able to cover 2 touchdowns there pretty easily, in my opinion. So 4 teams, 6-point teaser. That's plus 300.
I was gonna say we got to run it back at some point. Not a good football team, but yeah, I love that. I think Ohio State wins by 2 touchdowns. I love all the other picks though. But yeah, you said plus 300, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, triple your money. Good. I think that's a good 6-point teaser there. Mike, what do you think about R2, and what do you got for your teaser or parlay of the week?
I like both of yours. There's no criticism to be had. I like all of those picks and buying those points and taking those money lines. For mine, it's just a 3-leg teaser, buying some points. I started it with the under. So this was close to being my under pick for our normal section. Michigan State at Rutgers. I believe the line is 38.5. They're both bad offenses and good defenses. So it's like almost like an Iowa State game. So I bought 6 points there to make that under 45. Iowa plus 16 at Wisconsin. That Iowa's defense is too good to lose by 16 to Wisconsin. The line was screwing me up at plus 10 or whatever it is, plus 10, plus 11. I'm not sure how many points I bought. But 16 made me feel good, getting on the edge of 2 scores. And then same with Matt. Utah is a better football team than Cal by a large margin. So Utah -7 versus Cal. All 3 of those will get you plus 223. So over double your money back.
Yeah, I like those a lot. I think Utah's way better. Michigan State Rutgers game is going to be ugly slot fest in
watch that
in New
game.
Jersey.
That's
a you set the reminder on the app and then you just check in on the score. Hopefully you just get no alerts as the entire game goes on. But no, the Iowa Wisconsin game, I feel like I definitely overrated Wisconsin a little bit early season, but no, Iowa's defense is way better than Wisconsin's offense is, so I do like that as well.
There might not be 16 points scored in that game total. You might be set already.
Oh man. Yeah, you gotta do what I'm doing with Michigan. You just want it to be a blank on one side. But yeah, that's I do like those. Those are good. I think we're being a little bit more conservative. I think Mike, you hit yours last week, but Matt and I think we lost like 2 or 3 of our last in a row. But yeah, moving down for plus 244, plus 300, and plus 223. And then a couple other picks to throw out. Mike, I'll just circle right back to you. What are some other games you got your eye on for this week?
Yeah, I wanted to stay away from the Thursday games because I wanted to give us time to get the podcast out and everything. But I like West Virginia -2 and under 50 against Houston. I like both of those for Thursday. West Virginia is 4-1, quiet 4-1. But they're not a good football team, but neither is Houston. So I think a sleepy start on a Thursday night gets that under 50. Purdue, I had plus 19 versus Ohio State. This has more to do with the 11 a.m. start than it does Purdue or Ohio State. So if the 11 a.m. start, it's going to be cold and rainy. They're going to let the grass grow out there in West Lafayette. Purdue went, Ohio State went there a few years ago and lost. I don't think that's going to happen. There's no dynamic receiver on Purdue this year. But 19 points is a lot, and sleepy start in the rain. They're not going to be airing it out from Ohio State. And then a sneaky plus money line. I think Charlotte money line versus Navy. Navy's not a good football team. Charlotte hung around against I believe it was Maryland. They were winning like late in the game, so they're not a terrible football team, and Navy is. So that I think if you're looking to get some plus money, that might be worth a sprinkle. I'm thinking about putting like a quarter unit after listening to you talk about Pitt. I'm thinking about putting a quarter unit on money line there. I did that with West Virginia against Texas Tech when we were talking about it a few weeks ago, and that was a nice 340 payout or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Pitt like running a new offense and coming off a bye week, and I just think it's a potential letdown. I think that's great, but no, I do like all your picks. The Purdue one scares me a little bit because it's the exact same talk track as I had with Maryland last week. I think Ohio State's a little bit sleepy on their starts. They started at noon this past week, and it was a 10-10 game at half, and then they just kind of turned it on, and Maryland really couldn't get anything done. But I just don't think. I think Purdue's not a good football team, man. So
they're not.
So
they're not as good as Maryland for sure.
No, so I don't think they're going to score early, and I just think Ohio State knows exactly what the spread is, so they're going to try and cover that. But I'll give some of mine. I do like South Carolina minus 2.5 versus Florida. I think Florida's kind of an ugly team, and betting against Graham Mertz and away games I think is a pretty good strategy. I have JMU minus 6 versus Georgia Southern. I know Matt already talked about this. I love that pick. I think JMU is great. And then Temple North Texas, I have that as under 70. I know North Texas likes to put up points. I think Temple is better on defense than they kind of let on, and I think they're going to be able to hold them down a little bit. And I think this game is not going to go up to 70 points. It's probably going to be in the high 50s if I had to take a guess. And then Maryland minus 14 versus Illinois. I like this. I didn't love it enough to make it any of my picks, but I liked it for adding it to my money line parlay. So I think Maryland definitely wins this game. I don't think Illinois is great, but Illinois can cover this. But I would probably have to bet on Maryland if I had to. And then the last game, I have this again as my money line parlay, but Kansas minus 3 at Oklahoma State. I just think this is a little bit of a reaction towards Kansas and Oklahoma State winning. I forget who they beat last week, but Oklahoma State kind of overplayed, and they're not really a good football team whatsoever. So yeah, Oklahoma played. They beat Kansas State last week, who we already talked about. Kansas State isn't great, but I mean, Kansas put up 51 last week against UCF. So I think Kansas is going to be able to handily beat them and definitely cover 3 points. But Matt, what else you got your eye on this weekend?
I went with Boise State minus 7.5 at Colorado State. We've kind of talked about Boise State a lot this year. I feel like one of us has had a bet on Boise State every week. It feels like it at least. But
that's Mike. Mike loves them.
I do love Boise State.
Boise State's a good team. I think they can beat Colorado State comfortably. UNC minus 4 versus Miami. Mike already talked about that one. I really like that pick, especially with Devontae Walker coming back. I'm fully in on UNC stock for the next coming weeks. And then Memphis plus 5 versus Tulane. I thought about making this my underdog pick. I just think these teams are a lot closer. I think this game should be closer to a pick 'em. I don't know that Memphis wins this game, but I think they can keep winning the touchdown.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I flirted with this being my underdog as well. If this was at 7, I would have hammered it immediately. But 5 is confusing me because I feel like there's something I don't totally know, and it might be a late 1 touchdown game. But no, I like all those picks. But good picks all around. We gotta bounce back a little bit. All the boys, we gotta get positive this week. But yeah, that's our Week 7 podcast. The Transfer Portal CFB Gambling Podcast. Presented by No Context CFB. So like this video, subscribe to us, follow us on our Twitter, tportalcfb, and we put out our graphics every single week, and we're keeping track, and we're going to keep track of all the units plus or minus as well. So thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week.